Good evening and welcome to this special programme from Lewisham in southeast London. I'm at a library in Catford. It is brand new and it's been busy all day, but from this week it's also being used as a warm hub. Quite simply, a place for people and families to come to, maybe just for a few hours a day, to keep warm, to use the facilities because they are struggling to pay to heat their own homes. We know energy prices have been rising, food has never been so expensive, and more bad news if you have an unfixed mortgage or if you're renting. The Bank of England today set the biggest hike in interest rates since the 80s. Winter is coming and the cost of living crisis is biting harder than ever. Increasingly, places like this are becoming a lifeline to so many. Tonight we hear from the Londoners who are genuinely scared about what the future holds for them, their homes and their businesses. We'll hear from the pensioner who says she can't afford to put the kettle on. From volunteers struggling to keep up with demand, and of course some advice on how to help with rising bills. But first, this report from Sam Holder, who spent the day with the Evelyn Community Centre just around the corner from here, providing urgent food and services for hundreds of people.
It gives me nightmares, actually, what we're expecting.
I've never seen as bad as this.
There doesn't seem no light at the moment at the end of that tunnel.
I don't know whether there's going to be able to be a meal to be placed on the table for me or even my children.
450 people depend on the food here. With rising bills and supermarket prices, more and more try to join each month, but there isn't enough. The day starts early for volunteers, picking up donated supplies, preparing not just the shelves, but themselves too.
The tales that we hear, you know, I'll often go out into the other room and have a cry sometimes during the day. Just quite heartbreaking at the moment, people who are working, not being able to afford the basic stuff.
Like Tony, who has 2 children.
I'm having to make sure my kids are eating. I don't always tend to eat, so I make sure they've got enough food in there. It's days without meals at the moment.
So you go days at a time without eating?
For me, yes.
To make sure that your kids can?
Yeah.
The Evelyn Community Store was set up and is run by local volunteers. It charges £3.50 for a week's worth of food. Users prefer paying something, even though some can't afford to turn on the oven. Volunteers here don't just provide food. Natasha has become a de facto carer for many in the community, delivering supplies, helping with bills, appointments, even bathing. She doesn't know how they got her number.
If we weren't there to answer these questions, who would they go to? Because there's no more advice centres where they can just drop in. So would these people lose their properties? Would they miss appointments?
Some would say that if these people are vulnerable, it would be the state's responsibility.
If the services are being strangled, they're just one of thousands in a massive pool.
David had a career as a chef at a hotel. His speciality was cooking escargot. Now he can't afford fruit or veg.
I usually don't have 3 meals a day. I usually have my breakfast and maybe something at night time. It depends what's happening, no?
And is that because of the cost of food, or is that...
Of course.
Just to be clear, if you could, you would be having 3 meals a day. Even with support from the Evelyn Centre,
Yeah.
the cost is too high, you can't afford to.
Yeah. It's very hard.
The cost of living is set to be even worse over the coming months, but people here are already hardly getting by. The Evelyn staff are just volunteers. They don't get paid, but they are keeping their community afloat. Just ask Lloyd.
I can come to have a good standard of life. You know, it's not as good as I want it to be, but it's been a great help. For the essential things in life, this is the best thing that's happened in the UK. Not just in London, in the UK.
Well, here in Lewisham, the council says its government funding has been cut by 60% in the last 12 years. And that has hit people who live in the borough. The council now spending £450 less per resident for services. And 12 warm banks, including this one, have been opened in Lewisham alone. Well, joining me now are Lauren, Medua, Eileen and Kayla. Guys, thank you all for joining me today at this library, at what is now going to be this warm hub. And you've all come in for different reasons, haven't you? Lauren, let's start with you. You came in earlier with your daughter, Kira, just to get a book out.
Just to get a book, yeah.
But we chatted a bit, didn't we, about the cost of living and how is it affecting you? So compare your shop this year to a year ago. What's different?
A lot less. I'm getting a lot less for my money now, and it's having to budget more and going for the cheaper brands when I'm shopping and being more curious about what I'm buying rather than just picking anything I want.
And you've got two kids at home.
I've got two children.
You've got a 17-year-old.
17-year-old and a 10-year-old.
Yeah. Have you had to make those difficult conversations yet with them and say, you're not having that this week?
I have, yeah, and it is difficult, and because when they ask, well, my son's not so bad, it's my daughter, but I think she does understand that if I can't afford it, then she can't have it.
But it's hard.
It is hard. It is very hard.
Medua, you're a student, first year at university, and you were in here earlier, weren't you?
Yeah.
Why were you here studying?
This is my first time coming here, actually. I came with my brother just to get out of the house, and there are quite a lot of us in the house. I have 4 siblings and my mum as well.
Yeah.
So my brother and I just wanted to come somewhere quiet and warm, and just, there's the Wi-Fi here, it's peaceful, so we felt like we could just focus here.
Yeah, because you have to use the internet.
Yeah, exactly.
As a student.
Yeah.
And it must be tough for your mum. She's got 4 kids.
Yeah.
Just the 4.
It's kind of sometimes pretty hectic, and just getting everything organized and moving, and the school and everything. So yeah, she's doing quite a good job, I'd say, as managing under the circumstances.
Yeah, managing, and it is that, isn't it? Eileen, what about you? What's it like for you at the moment?
For me, I'm seeing the increase, like Lauren was saying, shopping, the increase, and you're getting a lot less than you normally used to get. We come here to use the facilities. My daughter likes to try do reading, so we come here and do some reading, spend a bit of time before we head home. And
you said to me, didn't you, your energy bills have gone up?
Yes.
By how much? And is it manageable at the moment?
At the moment it's manageable, which I'm thankful for. But if it does go up any more, then that's when I'm going to have to really cut down on budget.
What goes first then?
Food.
Really?
Probably food.
That's a very tough choice to make.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It is a tough choice. But and also being careful about switching on the heating and everything like that. So yeah.
Presumably you will come here and use these facilities more often when you have to. Well, Lauren, Medua, Eileen.
Yes.
Kayla, thank you so much for talking to me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, despite the government energy price guarantee of £2,500 for average households, the impact of gas and electricity price rises are being felt in every corner of the capital. And as our political correspondent Simon Harris reports, some London councils are coming up with energy-saving advice to cut costs.
Like many Londoners, Zach had a painful encounter with the cost of living crisis when his energy provider went bust. British Gas stepped in, but he says his monthly bill for gas and electricity shot up from £100 to £450. Zach, a father of 2 who lives in New Cross, is a mature student hoping to become a social worker. He gets universal credit, so money is tight.
We used to go for shopping maybe twice a week. Maybe we have to reduce and go only once. And if we used maybe to spend on kids' activities, we have to cut them.
In another part of southeast London, Saban has run his cafe in Catford for 18 years. He's had to switch off 2 of his 3 deep-fat fryers and uses only half his griddle.
We're going to go bankrupt because electricity is going up. My supplier putting their price up. That means I have to put my price up, and then when I put my price up, I will get less customer because they cannot afford it, and then less customer means shut the shop.
The high price of gas and electricity is forcing some Londoners to take drastic measures. Across London, councils and housing associations have seen a growing number of tenants who are so worried about their gas bills they're asking to be disconnected. They see it as a way of avoiding not just rising energy prices, but also standing charges. Those are the fixed energy costs households and businesses must pay, however much or however little energy they use.
This is particularly true of those who are on prepayment meters, where the standing charge is higher for people on prepayment meters than it is for people who pay their bills monthly.
Warm banks like Catford Library are one way councils can help.
We're hiring out, loaning out for free thermal imaging cameras from our libraries so people can take them home and see what is wrong with their house.
Claire borrowed one of Waltham Forest Council's thermal cameras and found closing her wooden window shutters really made a difference. She was also advised to put tin foil reflective panels behind the radiators.
We can have our thermostat lower, and the heat that is pumping around the house will be directed into the room rather than escaping through the walls outside.
We contacted British Gas about Zach's case, and the company has now agreed to cut his bill to £200 a month instead of £450.
Well, I'm joined now by Sam Hawksley, who is the CEO of the charity Lewisham Local, supporting this warm bank and others, and by the Mayor of Lewisham, Damien Egan. Thank you both for joining me here tonight. Sam, you're a charity working locally in the area. We've seen the increase, the uptake of people using food banks. Do you think there's going to be the same kind of demand for warm hubs now that we are approaching winter?
Yeah, absolutely. I think all the things that we've seen and heard from people and through our network of local food banks is that people are incredibly worried about what's going to be happening this winter, how their bills are going to be going up, how their mortgages are going to be affected. Yeah. So we really hope warm centres like this will be able to provide a lifeline of support for people.
And it is, because when we were talking to Lauren and sort of Meadow, who's a student, it isn't just about being warm, it's about the facilities that are here.
Absolutely, yeah. We hope to include lots of other wraparound support, whether that's social prescribing, whether that's advice, financial advice, and social activities. You know, people get really lonely, really isolated, particularly during the winter time. So we want to do all we can through volunteers, through community groups who are really stepping up at this time to support people.
Damon, the issue is always funding, isn't it? We hear that in Lewisham, over the last 12 years, 60% cut in funding. How are you going to keep all these places going? There's 12 of them. How is it going to actually work practically?
So practically, we've been very lucky. We've got these 12 open this week, and then the community stepping forward and offering places as well. So it's going to be really good. And what we're trying to do is find a number of small things, like staying here so that then you don't have to put the heating on at home. Small things that will make a difference to people this winter while they need it.
I mean, the government says that there is help available for people who need extra financial support, who may be on benefits as well. But the reality is as well, the Chancellor has not ruled out more spending cuts, more austerity on the way. Your worries about that then?
That's what we're really worried about. So we've had cuts here in Lewisham every single year for the last 12 years. And now when you're looking at what's left to cut, we're looking at areas like adult social care, we're looking at areas like children's services, even though you know that's a false economy, because of course if you cut social care, that impacts the NHS. If you cut services for young people, it makes it harder for them to get a job later on.
And Sam, very, very quickly, a lot does rely on volunteers, but we saw, even now, it's harder for people to volunteer. Food banks aren't even getting the contributions that they used to get, very quickly.
Yeah, the numbers are sky high for food banks and food projects. Volunteer numbers are really low at the moment. So whatever we can do today, call out to action, you know, volunteer at your local food bank. Every little bit of giving helps, particularly during the winter time.
Sam, Damien, thank you both. Thank you. Well, we asked for a government minister to be live on the programme tonight, but none were available, unfortunately. Well, earlier we heard from the Conservative London Assembly member Neil Garrett about what he thinks his party should do to help Londoners.
What I think the government ought to be doing, and what I'll be looking for, is I think a combination of two things. One is recognising that there are broad pressures, particularly on energy. The energy cost support, I think, will need to continue, at least as long as energy cost remains very high. The second thing I think that I'll be looking for is targeted support for people who are particularly struggling.
Neil Garrett speaking there. Well, the cost of living crisis has forced many to make difficult decisions. According to Age UK, 22% of people over 60 are cutting back on their care and specialist foods because of costs. So the charity warns the knock-on effect will lead to more pressure on the health service. Sonia Lawrence is a disabled woman who often can't pay for proper meals. She eats crackers instead. Well, Rags Martell went to visit her at her home in Battersea.
Putting on the kettle is now too expensive. To save money, Sonia Lawrence now uses kitchen tap water, which is included in her rent.
The hot water is in with our rent.
So you're saving money?
Yes.
With prices constantly spiralling upwards, the cost of living for Sonia means sometimes going without food. Are there days when you're hungry?
Yes, and I just says some crackers, hot water, or black coffee. That would suffice me, and then I just go to sleep.
Sonia is retired with mobility issues. She lives alone in Battersea. After paying her rent, she has to get by on £65 a week.
It's very, very tight at the moment. Benefit-wise, I don't get enough money.
How much harder is it getting month by month?
I have to be scrimping, like pinching, make sure that lasts me.
Are you missing some meals?
Yes, because it's expensive. On a Wednesday, I look forward to go to the centre.
The centre is Age UK Wandsworth, a charity offering help and support to the elderly.
People just don't know what to do. They're coming to us to ask for help with benefits, to see if we can help them get any more money to help them pay for their weekly bills, to pay for food. People used to say it was a choice of either food or heating. I don't think that's the case anymore. I think people don't have, a choice of money for food and for heating.
After the weekly coffee morning, we spoke to some of the people who dropped in.
When you go shopping, you notice from day to day the prices go up.
Yeah, exactly.
And they don't go up by pennies. Oh. They go up by sort of 50p in a pound.
When I go out to buy things and I see that, the price is going up and the money I have is going down, you see, this is a vicious circle.
But the thing is, say winter's coming and you think to yourself, how much is it going to cost when you put your heating on?
Back home in Battersea, Sonia shows us her payment meter. Do you look at the price and worry about how much it's costing?
Yes, I do. And it tells you how much you use, so I try to cut down.
And she's keen to tell us she's not the only one struggling.
It's just not me alone, there's others, because it will eventually it would affect our mental state, put us in this bliss of depression. Who do you ask? Who do you turn to?
Well, today, the news of the highest rise in interest rates since 1989 shows just how concerned the Bank of England is about curbing spiralling inflation. It is a worrying move, not only for those with mortgages, but as Antoine Allen reports, for those renting in London who fear the costs that are coming to them are just too high.
A huge increase in fears and worries for homeowners and renters. Even before the Bank of England's borrowing announcement, Lawrence had to negotiate against a 25% rent increase.
We had to argue them down sort of on bended knee, sort of be begging. We went back and forth. We were given a second offer. We appealed for a third, and we only just managed to get something that we could make sense of for a whole year. And the year after that, gosh, who knows?
Today, the Bank of England announced interest rates would rise to 3%, the biggest jump in 3 decades, meaning mortgage rates for the average borrowing increased by £73 a month. Letting agents fear the increase will impact renters' chances of finding affordable housing.
It's the ones that are in the position of searching at the moment. I do feel for them, but there's not enough choice. And they are paying in some occasions, some hefty hikes.
As the Chancellor walked into a theatre in South London, he suggested government debt must follow his dissent if rising interest rates are to be reversed.
The best thing the government can do if we want to bring down these rises in interest rates
is to show that we're bringing down our debt. Families up and down the country have to balance their accounts at home, and we must do the same as a government.
Renters can find support. Lawrence volunteers with a rental union offering advice. With rising interest rates, there's a chance that renters could be exploited by letting agencies. What should the government be doing to protect people?
Renters unions are suggesting more regulation. They're suggesting rent control.
Those that can't afford to pay their rent will find the search for housing shockingly expensive.
Well, managing our finances is more important than ever, and with warnings of a recession that could last for several years, we are all looking for advice on how we can make savings. And joining me now is personal finance expert Lynn Beattie, otherwise known as Mrs. Mummy Penny, which is a brilliant name, obviously. Listen, Lynn, you've got 3 kids. You know how it is. You used to be in debt as well. How do we save money? Let's start with food. It's the most important thing.
It's the most important thing to start with, because if we don't have it, we won't survive. So it's change supermarkets to a cheaper supermarket brand. It's stopping with little treats and making things at home rather than going to eat out. It's making fakeaways rather than takeaways. Like making a pizza with your kids is just like, it's super cheap and it's loads of fun, and it's just going to save you lots of money.
And it all helps, doesn't it? What about energy then specifically? We hear from people, they're already not using the lights, they're not putting the heating on already. We've had a very warm October. What else can they do?
Yeah, the biggest change you can make with your energy, okay, there's 2 things. So it's firstly, look at your thermostat, turn the temperature down as much as you can bear, warm yourself rather than the room or the house. Go to places like what we're standing in to keep warm, but also look at the flow temperature on your boiler, put that down to 70. Those are the big changes you can make, which will have a really big impact on your energy bills.
And you mentioned about warming yourself. There's some people who may be sick, they are vulnerable, they're elderly. They cannot be in the cold. They cannot keep the heating switched on. Yeah. What do they do?
So for those people that are vulnerable, they really must call their energy companies and explain to them the situation they're in. There are vulnerable funds available for people. There are electric blanket discount schemes. Talk to your energy provider and ask for help, and it will be given.
Final thing, boilers, very quickly. You told me something important about your boiler.
So put the flow temperature down to 70, which will save you lots of money.
That is what we want to hear. Mrs. Mummy Penny, thank you so much for talking to us tonight. Thank you. Well, of course, there are more tips on how to save around the house. Just go to our website, head over to ITV News/London. Well, throughout this programme, we've seen how struggling Londoners rely on the community spirit of others. It is a strength this city has shown many times before, and as the crisis deepens, the need will be even greater, that is for sure. Well, the weather follows us, but we leave you tonight with the thoughts of Serena and Nadale and Leo, 3 volunteers devoting their time to help others. Good night.
So, health and safety.
When the camera comes to you, tell us about.
So you can see here some of the produce that's going to be turned into meals. We've got mushrooms, we've got some potatoes at the back there, and onions. I really agreed with their aims, make sure no Londoners were hungry. We produce roughly 3,000 meals a day, and that means 3,000 people are getting hot, healthy food, which they might not otherwise have.
Any questions for me?
No. I've met so many lovely people, from such diverse backgrounds. And it feels like family, it feels like there's community spirit here. It keeps me coming back even, on my days off.
Hello, Age UK East London. I was helped years ago and I got ill and I knew nothing, absolutely nothing about disability benefits. This opportunity came up for me to be able to give back some of the help that I received. Hello, Aaron. How are you? Their feelings makes me feel, I've done something. It's been a success. Sometimes when it doesn't happen, you do feel a bit disheartened, but you keep going and you encourage them to keep going.
I originally started
attending a cookery class with Made in Hackney, and I enjoyed it so much that I felt I wanted to give something back.
Have you heard of Made in Hackney before?
Made in Hackney?
Yeah.
It gives me great pleasure to share the skills that I've learnt, and also just meet all manner of new people. It's cheap entertainment for me. I don't have to pay to go to the theatre. I can come and enjoy an evening hosting a cookery course, which I find very fun and rewarding.